In a fishing environment, the most common things that can mislead your bite alarm are wind, waves, and other environmental vibrations. Wave movement, in particular, is one of the biggest sources of confusion for a fish bite alarm. The green signal shown here represents the kind of environmental movement you often experience in real fishing conditions. Thanks to its smart modes, wiser fisher can analyze the behavior of waves and wind and distinguish real fish bites from environmental noise. But let's say this time you don't want to use the smart modes. You want to use manual mode instead. In other words, you don't want the device to make the decision automatically. You want to set the sensitivity level yourself. So, how should the sensitivity be adjusted in this case? That is exactly what we explain in this video. The red line on the screen represents our threshold level. Any signal that stays below this line, whether it comes from a wave, wind, or even a fish movement, will not be treated as an alarm by the device. Only vibrations that rise above the red line will be detected. Now let's imagine a calm sea condition. When we keep the threshold at this level, we can see that some wave movements are still crossing the line. In this situation, the device may detect waves as if they were fish bites. If we don't want the system to be affected by waves, we need to raise the threshold slightly. Now look, the wave movements can no longer reach the threshold. Only real fish bites are able to cross this level. This is the basic logic behind the correct setting. Now let's imagine that the weather conditions become a little rougher. The wind gets stronger, the waves become more powerful, and the level of environmental vibration increases. Now, some waves begin to cross the red threshold line. This can lead to false alarms. So, what should we do in this situation? We move the threshold a little higher. This way, vibrations caused by waves and wind can no longer reach the alarm level. But when a real fish bite occurs, the signal still crosses the threshold and the device detects the bite. As you can see, with the right adjustment, environmental movements are filtered out, while real fish bites can still be detected. So, what happens if we raise the threshold too much? This time, yes, the waves cannot cross the threshold. But a weaker or lighter fish bite may also stay below that level. In that case, the device may miss the fish bite as well. That is why the sensitivity threshold should not be set too high. Now let's try the opposite and lower the threshold. As you can see, the device has started to detect many more vibrations. When we lower the threshold even further, even wind and small environmental movements begin to reach the alarm level. In other words, the device becomes too sensitive, and false alarms increase. That is why the threshold level is really a matter of balance. If it is too low, the device detects almost every movement. If it is too high, it may miss real fish bites. The correct setting should be based on the wind, wave, and weather conditions of your fishing environment. When using Wiser Fisher in manual mode, you can adjust this sensitivity level according to your own fishing conditions. But what if you don't want to set it manually? Instead of opening the mobile app, entering the UDM settings, and adjusting the sensitivity yourself, can Wiser Fisher do this automatically for you? Of course. In the Wiser Fisher mobile app, there is a calibration button. When you press this button, the device listens to the waves, wind, and environmental vibrations around your fishing spot for about odd seconds. Then it automatically adjusts the red threshold line, in other words, the sensitivity level, according to the current conditions. This allows Wiser Fisher to adapt to your environment and create a more balanced, more reliable detection level. But if you prefer to adjust it yourself, the basic idea is very simple. If you set the threshold too low, environmental movements like wind and waves may create false alarms. If you set the threshold too high, you may miss weaker fish bites. The right point is the balanced level where environmental vibrations stay below the threshold, while real fish bites can still be detected. With manual sensitivity adjustment or automatic calibration, Wiser Fisher gives you a smarter and more controlled fish bite alarm experience in different fishing conditions. Thanks for watching.